Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on my experience with the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Now, this nearly $1,000 smartphone is, of course, brand spanking new and follows the Note 7, which really never was. And of course, I do have the Note 7, and I say, of course, a lot of people don't have it. It was recalled. There you can see it side by side with the Note 8. And the Note 7 was a fantastic phone, in many ways a game changer. Unfortunately, part of the game that it changed was safety, and that was why Samsung said, hey, send us that back. Now, if you were a Note 7 owner like myself, you got the opportunity to have a special trade-in value up to $425 directly with Samsung. That is a program that I did partake in order to pick up the Note 8, a phone that I really was waiting for because, quite frankly, not only did I not get to enjoy the Note 7, but I also went through my home getting destroyed, all of those things. So it's more of a memento at this point of the experience of my home getting destroyed by Hurricane Matthew. But all of that aside, the Note 8 really does deliver. So far, in my limited experience, exactly what I expected, which is what the Note 7 had to promise, but with a larger display, more RAM, not that much more processing power, but for the most part these days, you can't really say that any brand new phone is going to be any more beast than another. Of course, the S Pen, really the signature of the Note brand, is here in full force, and for those of you that really do want to have a device with a pen, well, there is no other legit option in my opinion, and the S Pen, still in the lower right-hand corner, is still exactly that. I mean, as you can see, as soon as I pull it out here, our options range from creating a note, viewing all notes, smart select, screen write, a live message, and then you have translate, and you can actually customize a little bit of this. This is all dandy. I mean, this is exactly what the Note experience is all about. As you can see right there, the option to add shortcuts. Customization is pretty solid. This is running TouchWiz for those of you that are wondering. I'm not doing a software walkthrough here today. But when it comes to looking at what's in the market right now, this is max brightness, by the way. There's really nothing like this phone on the market. From a design perspective, you're not going to find a 6.3-inch display on a device that you can actually comfortably hold in your hand. For those of you wondering why I actually went with the Verizon version of this phone as opposed to getting something unlocked, and this is stock. I've installed nothing. I've just been using this as a phone. I mean, so I don't have battery life tests for you yet. I will eventually, of course. But in terms of the hardware they've put together here, when you compare it to anything else on the market, there is nothing else like it. IP68 rating, which means water resistance. It can be submerged for up to 30 minutes in, I think, 1.5 meters of water. You've got two 12-megapixel cameras on the back there next to the fingerprint scanner and your flash. And one essentially is a wide-angle camera. The other is not one. The one that is not wide-angle has a 2x optical zoom. Both of these cameras incorporate optical image stabilization, so Samsung does promise with the Note 8 to be delivering the best camera experience on the market. So this is really a multimedia powerhouse. Now, the one caveat to this entire experience is, of course, battery life. That's what everyone's been talking about. I can get a Galaxy S8 Plus for less money, and it's got 200 milliamps more of battery life. And they're right, you can. And if you don't care about the pen, if you don't care about the larger screen, you absolutely should do that. I see no reason why you wouldn't go out and get yourself that phone. In fact, if you don't care about the S Pen, why are you even interested in the Note? Maybe it's because of the gorgeous 6.3-inch display. I understand that. And that may be a selling point for people who don't care about the S Pen. I could see why that would be a realistic option. Nothing else like it. Samsung has, when it comes to design, certainly made, I think, a much cleaner and, dare I say, beautiful piece of hardware than what they did with the Note 7, which was already a gorgeous phone. But they got rid of the physical button, extended the screen, changed the aspect ratio. That's how we have a 6.3-inch display that fits in your hand. But with regard to the battery life, again, this entire debate, or it's not even really a debate, it's more like a rant of trolls as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not saying this to defend Samsung. I do think that they should have put a larger battery in here, but clearly there must have been some sort of engineering restraint, because I see no other reason other than maybe margins, which that still wouldn't make sense. So again, I'm back to engineering restraint as to why Samsung decided to forego using a larger battery like the one they already are sticking in the S8 Plus. And maybe that was to avoid an explosive phone. I don't know. At any rate, the point is that 200 milliamp difference is not going to be a game breaker for anyone who wants a pen experience. So let's just get that out of the way right now. If you're here for the S Pen, you're not going to care about the 200 milliamps. So I don't understand the debate. If you don't care about the S Pen, and really the only allure is the gigantic screen, then you probably, that's a more difficult decision for you to make. But for me, it's not. It's about the pen. It's about having the multitasking flexibility that, believe it or not, TouchWiz has to offer. The biggest gripe I have so far with the phone really lies with the dedicated button for Bixby. Now, Bixby, I can tell you right now, I have it on my new Samsung fridge, is crap. Maybe that'll change, but right now it's garbage. So there are already options out there to reprogram that button, remap it. Samsung natively out of the box does not support remapping that, so that does suck. There's no question about it. But the fact that you can easily work around that is a good thing. It's not the way things should be, though. Samsung should have given the ability, just like camera manufacturers often do on high-end electronics cameras, obviously, since I just said camera manufacturers, to allow you to customize buttons. And in this case, this button, if I could map it to Google Home, which I can using third-party apps, then I really like the idea, because having to unlock the phone and touch that is not what I'm looking to do. I would far prefer to be able to use this button. Instead, of course, it launches Bixby, which, again, I said Bixby right now is crap. Now,
just press and hold. Here are all of the
I already went through this, but because I didn't log in because I never planned to use Bixby, that's going to always be the splash screen for me until I do actually firmly start using it as a Google Home button. And I will, and I may end up doing a video about that. I've, again, wiped the phone stock just so that everyone can see exactly what comes literally out of the box. So, overall, call quality has been good. Speaker, basically the same as the Note 7. Not in love with the fact that all we have is that speaker down there at the bottom. It means that if your hand is ever over it while watching video content, YouTube, maybe one of my videos, you're not going to hear anything. Now, of course, you can use headphones. You do have, a headphone jack on here, but I would have liked to have seen Samsung put a little more effort than just saying, hey, you can use the headphone jack or Bluetooth headphones, which is kind of what this is sending the message to me on, especially since the Galaxy Tab S3 was all about its audio quality. Granted, it didn't have the most amazing audio quality. They made sure to put speakers everywhere. I'm not sure why here on the Note 8 we don't see that trend following through. Usually, the technology and incorporation, the synergy across the mobile lineup does sync up. Here, it just doesn't seem to do that, and I'm not sure why. Now, in terms of software, TouchWiz is the most comprehensive overlay that you could possibly find in the Android realm, and it used to be the bane, or for those, I'll clean it up, the bane of many people's existence when it came to a Samsung love-hate relationship. They hated it, but I think it really just continues to mature and offer something you won't find with any other device. And now that we've got this giant, gorgeous display, which Samsung does down-res out of the box, which is cute. I think it's kind of stupid. You can see we're in the fully red in terms of brightness, because Sammy doesn't even want you to do that. You see, I take it down, it becomes blue. They actually tell you when you take it all the way up that you're being bad. Red light, green light. Anyway, the whole point is, even though that's blue light, the whole point is that everything here is very similar to what you're already accustomed to. in terms of, quick settings that you can change and customize there, which I've always liked, always thought was a good thing. But the resolution is where things, they just show their hand. So if we jump in a display, and I'm just doing this quickly, you'll immediately see a screen resolution full HD plus. They want you to run this thing at 2220 by 1080. They are not interested in you going to WQHD plus. So even though I've been talking this whole time about a phone that has the highest resolution, largest display on the market, over 520 pixels per inch, they don't want you to use it. Now, clearly, that's a battery life-saving move that Apple's been employing ever since they came up with their BS Retina crap. Everyone got excited about Retina displays, and it was like, you're not even you're getting the resolution, but you're not using it, so take it easy. It's kind of like 4K computer displays. If you have a 4K monitor, but you're not able to use it with, a one-for-one scaling dot pitch, and you're not getting the true 4K experience, and you have to bump up your DPI in order to actually use 4K, you're kind of defeating the purpose. And I look at that the same way on phones, which is why this whole resolution race that Apple started years ago was absurd. And don't get me wrong, I love high res. Anyone who follows my channel knows that's a great thing to have. But at a certain point, you do hit the wall, which is why making the screen larger is a way to compensate for that. But considering this thing still has a higher resolution than, let's say, a 30-inch Ultra Sharp that comes in at 2K, and that's a 30-inch computer monitor, you start to see why this never made sense from the very beginning, and Apple really has just brainwashed everybody on the need for resolution. Again, not saying I don't want it, just saying we can't see it. All of that aside, so they're following suit here in telling you right out of the box, we don't want you to be at that higher resolution. You're going to milk that battery way too fast. And I've done plenty of research in my few days of ownership about battery life and ways to optimize it. If all of you out there are interested in it, I will dive into that, but that'll come after I do more of a software tour of this phone. Other things to point out, the 6 gigs of RAM. I definitely think it gives you a lot of headroom, and it's necessary, because for all of those people who have ever said TouchWiz is laggy, it's a hog. Well, guess what? Samsung said, okay, we'll throw 6 gigs of RAM in this sucker. And I think that's a good thing. I think that is the move that you need to make if you're going to accommodate the amount of capability that this phone encompasses. Because I have to say, this is outside of its battery capacity that everyone just continues to talk about. This thing is a monster. I mean, figuratively, literally, it is a monster. And now with 6 gigs of RAM, I mean, I've yet to see this thing lag. I'm sure at some point I'll get it to lag. But, you've got the 64 gigs of internal storage, expandable up to 256 realistically at present through a micro SD card in the future, even more. I mean, as those cards drop and their prices drop, this thing can go up to like 2 terabytes. So this thing is a monster, and I will not say that lightly. I mean, physically, again, next to the Note 7, and then I'll take the phone that I've been using, which is, of course, the Pixel, which anyone who follows my channel already knows. The Pixel XL has been my go-to phone, or maybe they don't know, because quite frankly, this whole year I've kind of been away. Anyone that follows the channel knows my production has dropped off, and that's because, I've been I hate to say victim, but a hurricane victim for a year now. So there we have them all side by side. I'll get the Note 8 right in the middle, and you can clearly see the Note 8 is a taller device. That 21:9 aspect ratio is the real direct change, and really eliminating bezel. I mean, these two are bezel kings. This is bezel-less, just about. The curved screen, cool, necessary? No, it's not, but it's popular, and that's been established with all of Samsung's phones now for ever since they introduced the curved displays. What was once thought to be a fad, it's become a standard. And that's not something you're going to find with the new iPhone, which, they've added wireless charging. Yes, that really was the sound of me snapping because I couldn't give a shit. I mean, congratulations. You finally brought wireless charging. This is something that has been around for so long. I mean, to finally introduce it, wow. I mean, I know Apple users have been content, and God bless them. I'm not talking down to you. I'm not insulting you. A lot of people are happy with different things, but Apple should have been integrating wireless charging for a long time. And by the way, that doesn't excuse this phone. What the hell, Google? I mean, the Pixel, no wireless charging. When this came out, that's why when I had to give this up because it wasn't safe to put in my pocket and I had to pick up the Pixel, I was just like, all right, so the Pixel XL is a nice phone. I love the fact that I still am going to have my, Nexus experience. I'm going to have Oreo before anybody else, but no wireless charging? What? I mean, I have to imagine that is because they looked at Apple and said, if they can get away with it, so can we. And so that's where the Note 8 comes in. I mean, I just mentioned the resolution thing. That's purely an Apple move. I mean, that's deciding that you do not need to push the envelope because the customer, the average customer, isn't going to be interested. And quite frankly, I think that's farcical. I don't think that's right. I think it's something where you want you're going to spend nearly $1,000 on a phone. You want something that's going to be as good as it possibly can be, which of course brings everyone back to that battery. But I do think that's completely being overhyped. I mean, that extra 200 milliamps is really going to be the difference on you making it through the day. If you're that much of a power user, you're probably already carrying around a power brick, like myself. And in that case, it's completely moot. There's nothing to talk about. But overall, I can tell you right now, if you purchase this phone, you are not going to be unhappy unless all of a sudden we get reports over the next month that they start blowing up. Otherwise, from a design perspective, functionality perspective, even form factor, I mean, the fact that they've made such a large display usable in just about anyone's hands. You would imagine that you would need giant hands for a 6.3-inch display. It's a feat that I really didn't expect. And, I'm not interested in anyone who's going to comment on the fact that I brought up CNN now, just to, do a quick browser test, can basically go eat one. This is not my political channel, but eventually it will be at some point, not this channel. Jump over to ESPN. Boy, did my Giants eat it right before I sat through Hurricane Irma. But, the phone is just fast. Now, granted, right now I am over Wi-Fi. I have a rock-solid network here in the freshly rebuilt house. But over Verizon, I'm also getting fantastic LTE coverage here, so no problem with that. It really comes down to, again, how much do you care about media consumption? How much do you care about the screen real estate? I mean, to see a Note phone with no physical buttons on the device is taboo, but in the same vein, refreshing because this is the clean look that I think so many users were waiting for so long. So, a lot to like here. The phone performs really well, and I haven't even gotten that deep yet. But, when you brass tacks here get down to whether or not it's worth $1,000, no phone is. No phone is really worth $600, folks. I'm going to break this news now as gently as I possibly can. This idea that there's a threshold for what's okay and what's not when it comes to pricing is, again, just crazy. I'll go back to CNN to piss some people off. And this guy, Potato Head over here, better get his act straight. But all of that aside, the point is that, the price of this phone is crazy, but thank Apple. I mean, Apple has continued to crank out. And by the way, I'm sorry I said this was a quick update. I got to take that out of my language, or I don't, because I don't really care for that matter. The idea that phones should be less money was where the Nexus program was born, and that you could get performance and quality, products at affordable prices. Unfortunately, that's a dead genre of smartphone. I wish it wasn't the case, but even Google abandoned ship. But here, what we're looking at really is, the epitome of that. Apple had been for many years, but without really being a game changer. And now we've got Samsung being a game changer. A lot of people don't believe this phone is a game changer because they basically think it's the S8 Plus married to the Note 7 with a slightly smaller battery. But I don't know. Put this next to an S8 Plus and it looks similar, but it's not. I mean, having the extra screen real estate in the S Pen already make it a different device. Yes, they have the same processor. They don't have the same amount of RAM. Internal storage, yeah. But, this dedicated button, once you remap it to what you'd actually like it to be, I think is great. And the software, again, is what really completes the entire picture here. If you don't need the S Pen, again, like I said at the top of the video, you should be looking at something else. Why even consider this? Unless you're in love with the form factor, the build. I mean, it's a fingerprint magnet, by the way, for those of you that are curious, it is. And the location of the fingerprint scanner is not fantastic. I mean, look at how gross that looks, and my hands are clean. So I don't know what to tell you, but that's nothing new to Samsung. I mean, ever since they got in love with the glass back, that's what we've got. But the location of the fingerprint scanner is not an issue. People who are complaining about that's kind of irrelevant to me. It's not like it's difficult to reach. Like right now, I'm on it, and it's in my hand perfectly. So I don't really understand. I mean, that's more of like a personal preference thing. So I can't make the argument. Now, if it was somewhere like over here or some bizarre location, then I would get it. Is it nice to have it in the center? Yeah, it is. But when it's in the center of the phone, you could make the argument it's more, you've got to move your finger more to the right or more to the left. I mean, I don't know. Let's not be absurd. What it really comes down to is, do you want the latest and greatest from Sammy? Did you have a little bit of heartbreak experience withdrawal from not having your Note 7 like myself? Not that would have helped me over the last year with what happened to me, but I'm just saying, that's what the Note 8 provides. You now have a beautiful, 6.3-inch display that is as powerful as any smartphone has been, has more RAM than any smartphone has ever had, better cameras than any smartphone has ever had, optical zoom, which at 2 times may sound like nothing, but hey, it's more than no optical zoom. And from what I've seen so far, while the 2 times zoom is a little soft, I mean, that's to be expected. It's still better than digital zoom. The front-facing camera at 8 megapixels, also a wide-angle camera, is also very good. So, I mean, there's nothing to really complain about here. I mean, they've really addressed every single thing that you could possibly want. Again, other than that battery that people will continue to troll. And I get it. Like I said at the very beginning, I'm not here to excuse screw-ups on Samsung's behalf, but I got to imagine there was an engineering issue. And maybe in the Note 9, that's when, a giant battery is going to be thrown into this thing. But there has to be something about the form factor, the design, the engineering that did not permit them to put the same battery that's even in the S8 Plus. I don't know why that's not obvious to every reviewer out there. It should be glaringly obvious because it's not the same design in terms of, the actual phone itself. Also, the fact that the pen has to be on body, inside of the phone. There is another engineering feat that they have to work around that they simply didn't have to. So once you take all of these things into account, you should pretty much know whether or not this is the right device for you. Granted, this is just an update and not a review. I know right now the new Pixel XL is on the way, the new iPhone is on the way, but I also know they're not going to offer what I want, which is sitting right here. Now, again, barring that this thing becomes explosive, this is one of the few times that I can say with complete confidence, just me, will not have any phone lust or regret when those phones drop. I don't care if they have slightly better processors. I mean, Apple, I can't even believe I'm saying that. So friggin' joke, because it's not running the Android OS. It's basically a monkey in a cage, that whole OS. But the point I'm making is that, when it comes down to buying a phone today, because this phone did literally just launch on the 14th or the 15th it launches, which is now today, because I'm filming this at, now it's after 1:30 in the morning, because this is what things, how things are going these days. The point is that you're not going to see anything in the Google or Apple offering that's going to be as compelling as this. It's just that simple. There's no game-changing element. Sammy's got it. They have it all at their disposal. They're furnishing Apple with all of their hardware. What more do you need to know? Now, if you prefer iOS, then you should be buying the iPhone. And yes, I'm going off on a tangent about other devices, but that's because if you're considering the Note 8, you better be considering other devices. This is prime time for the holiday season ramp up. Summer's over, baby. They want to sell phones. And as that new Pixel and Pixel XL2 comes out, and we have the iPhone X, people are going to be looking at these three phones. And I'm not saying there aren't other devices in the mix that are great options, but these are going to be the three primary phones that people will compare. They are also going to be the most expensive, similarly priced, most expensive smartphones on the market. But the Note 8 right now, as far as I can throw it, I know that my biggest disappointment is going to really be that speaker. I mean, to have this multimedia machine and then that crappy little speaker that I can literally mute just by putting my finger over it isn't cool. That's wrong. And Samsung should have addressed it. But I guess since they have no real competition in the Note series, and I literally mean that, there is no other, there are other phones that have stylus, a stylus incorporated, but they don't compete with this. They don't have the ecosystem. They don't have the years of software development that Samsung packs here. So from that perspective, I can see why they can cut corners, or if they do have an engineering design flaw that they have to work around, they can get away with it, at least from my perspective. I'm not everyone, but basically everyone that I've met that's touched this phone, whether they're Apple users or Android users, think it's a work of art. It's beautiful. It's just, there's no device like it. And especially when you look at, what used to be right over there, that you can't see in frame. Cute, huh? Again, that side by side with the Note 7, you quickly realize it's just like, as much as I can't tell you the internals change that much outside of the bump up in RAM, because that is probably the most significant. And then, of course, the cameras being improved, and not blowing up. That's a pretty big improvement. Otherwise, you're talking about really the best phone on the market. And just the actual, in my opinion, design change is pretty radical. Again, you're talking about Samsung never wanted to give up this physical button, and now here they have given it up, but they gave us another physical button that could have been incredibly useful. I keep coming back to that Bixby button, and even in my unboxing I was like, I don't know what this, I don't remember what this is for, because quite frankly I don't have time to keep up with everything the way I used to, because I'm still dealing with, I was just cleaning up my house from Hurricane Irma. So, I mean, I can't keep up. I'm getting back to some normalcy, but again, the reality is that you are not going to find anything with the iPhone X that will, outdo this device. The Pixel XL2, of course, will have the advantage of having an OS advantage, but to me, the trade-off of the OS advantage to having what TouchWiz has to offer, I actually like what TouchWiz has to offer. Now, that's a case-by-case personal preference basis, so not everyone's going to think that way. But important for me to note for all of you that are actually curious about why the Note 8. Ed, why wouldn't you wait for the Pixel XL2? And my experience with the Pixel XL hasn't been bad. I'm not in love with it. And the Note has always had a place in my heart. The Note 7 did as well. But it just wasn't meant to be. The Note 8, on the other hand, is here. I've got accessories, which I will be sharing as well on the channel, and I think it's a winner. So the real downside, as I've mentioned, is that battery life, but again, that can be improved. I feel like that's being incredibly overplayed. It reminds me of, the Sony A9 and the overheating issue. I'm not getting into that now. That's a camera, and most of you that are interested in smartphones may not even know what the hell I'm talking about. And outside of that, the only other thing is the speaker. If those are the two, big issues, which really aren't big issues in my opinion so far, then this phone is as close to perfect as we're gonna get right here in 2017. And again, the reason I went with the Verizon version, for those of you wondering, is just because I will get more updates directly associated with my carrier. If you want Wi-Fi calling, things of that nature, some of the advanced features that Verizon does offer, if you go with the straight unlocked version, you will not have access to those. So bear that in mind before you say, hey, I don't want a locked phone. I don't want to have a locked phone. Well, you might want to have your carrier's version if you're going to be neglected, if punished for choosing the non-carrier version, the completely unlocked one. And bear in mind, you can still root this thing, and all rules that usually apply still do. If you want to get your hands dirty, you can with this device. I don't know that I have time to do that. I normally would, but like I said, I will be doing a software walkthrough on this phone if you're all interested in that, which I imagine you would be because it's very software rich. And granted, this video ran over 30 minutes, which I didn't plan on, but anyone that follows my channel knows that I ad-lib everything. This is not, I just tell you what I think of a product and go over the points that are critical and what either makes it or breaks it for me personally. So this is not a perfect device by any means, but the Note 8 is more impressive in just about every way than any other phone on the market. And this idea that you should just go out and get the S8 Plus instead because you can save $150 is crap. Again, anyone who's interested in the Note 8 is interested because of the S Pen experience. If you're not, there are a lot of phones to look at. And again, there's no need to be spending near $1,000 on a smartphone. In fact, by that token, you should probably be looking at last year's models and be getting them at a discount because the performance gap is narrow, to say the least. It's only a performance gap when you get something like this, where you get a game-changing screen like this, even with a smaller battery. And again, the pen feature with a fully fleshed out environment that's designed to use it to its fullest capability. So it's fairly simple, in my opinion. If you want to save money, there are a lot of phones out there that can accomplish that. If you have to have something new every year, you have a bit of an addiction. And buying cases and screen protectors is probably a good idea, since you're probably going to want to flip it. And by flip it, I don't mean flip it and break it. You're going to want to sell it. But I hope this update was helpful to some of you. That's why I'm spending my time going over it. And I really do like the Note 8. I think it's one of the nicest. I think it's the nicest phone I've ever put hands on, seen, even no matter how disgustingly gross the back looks. But once you throw a case on it, that's no longer an issue. So a lot to like here. And if the battery, again, is the thing holding you back from purchasing this phone, I want to be abundantly clear that I don't think that should be a reason. Because I still have yet to find a phone that really makes it through the entire day, truthfully, the way people always say, oh, I get through the whole day, how much screen time? 4, 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours? I mean, it all depends on what you're running. It all depends on what resolution here you're running, brightness level, a whole host of things. But again, if you're looking for a media consumption monster that's also a productivity machine, the Note 8 is the best of all worlds, even with its 200 less milliamps. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.